They didn't wait until Friday. That would have made it easier, an email late in the day, some corporate boilerplate about changing priorities, followed by 2 lukewarm beers and a bar tab I couldn't afford. But no. They chose Wednesday. Smack in the middle of the week like a scalpel through routine. Left me just enough time to clear my desk, fake a smile at the espresso machine, and choke down half a stale bagel that someone had the gall to label team snack. That morning, I'd solved a deployment issue that would have turned their precious infrastructure into digital spaghetti. Brent, yes, of course it was a Brent, could have spent 3 days panic Googling YAML syntax and still landed nowhere. But did I get so much as a Slack emoji in appreciation? Nope. Just a bland calendar ping titled Touchpoint. That's HR dialect for, you're about to be erased with the precision of a data wipe. So there I sat, still logged into Jenkins, watching logs scroll like old war footage, when Karen glided into the room with that permasmile HR folks were when they're about to casually dismantle your livelihood. Pastel cardigan, clipboard in hand, like a well-meaning schoolteacher about to tell you the science fair's been cancelled. It's not about performance, she trilled. It's just a budget recalibration. Budget recalibration, my ass. I was their uptime whisperer. I had duct taped their entire DevOps setup together with caffeine and stubbornness. When I joined, they were deploying with spreadsheets, guesswork, and something called hope. I'd turned that chaos into precision. But sure, let's blame the ledger, and just in case you're one of the beautifully chaotic souls watching this without subscribing, go ahead and slap that button like it owes. UPTO. It keeps this channel alive and cheaper than therapy. Back to the crime scene. 7 years. That's how long I gave them. 7 birthdays, dozens of weekends, hundreds of nights debugging code written by someone who clearly believed curly braces were optional. When everything ran smoothly, no one noticed. The systems worked, so they assumed magic. And when execs bragged about uptime in board meetings, it was always synergy this, optimization that. Synergy? I was the synergy. Then came Brent. The harbinger of chaos disguised in Allbirds and optimism. You know the type, smells like overpriced cologne and ambition. Fresh from some unicorn startup that failed upward. First day on the job, he called. A team huddle to talk, culture pivots. Culture pivots. Like we were a podcast trying to rebrand. He looked me straight in the face and asked why we used Terraform. I told him because it worked. He said, we need to think more visionary. I said, you need to learn to spell Kubernetes. Still, I gave him a chance. I onboarded his efficiency consultants, walked them through our deployment flow, even built an infographic. You'd think that kind of support earns goodwill. Instead, I got blindsided by budget cuts while Brent funneled 20 grand into a trust-building offsite. The silence in the office afterward? That was the worst part. Not a single voice raised. Not even a passive-aggressive, are you sure? Because they couldn't. They'd relied on me for so long, they forgot there was even someone steering the ship. Uptime had become invisible, like gravity. Take it away, and everything crashes. I went home. Didn't cry. Didn't rage. Just dropped onto my beat-up IKEA couch and let the void settle. My cat judged me from atop the bookshelf with the same energy Brent probably reserved for junior devs who asked too many questions. Then it hit me. I wasn't some random cog. I was the machine shop. 4 months earlier, before Brent waltzed in with his pivot plans, I'd started sketching something. A rough idea for a dev tool. Something lean, clean, mine. I'd shelved it because, well, loyalty. But now? That idea had teeth. They called it a quick sync. I clicked the invite like I always did, autopilot. Thought maybe Karen needed help reconfiguring her printer again. But no. The moment I entered that Zoom and saw Brent and Karen flanking each other like matching salt and pepper shakers of doom, I knew a Brent leaned forward like he was about to pitch a TED Talk. As part of staying lean and scalable, he began. Yes. The holy trinity of startup nonsense. Lean. Scalable. Disruptive. Karen chimed in like she was narrating a children's book. You've been such an integral part of the team. This isn't about you. Translation, it's definitely about you. I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just nodded like I was checking a grocery list. Appreciate the clarity, I said. They looked confused. Like they expected me to cry or argue. But see, I'd already left emotionally 6 months ago. Now I was just exiting the building. The severance? 2 weeks of hush money and a recommendation. Letter so bland it could have been written by a robot under NDA. I shut the laptop. Closed Jenkins for the last time. Walked to my desk and opened the folder I'd labeled as a joke months ago, burn_the_ships. Inside? The skeletal frame of a platform I'd been building in stolen moments between Brent's nonsense and broken deployments. No VC buzzwords. No inflated job titles like digital alchemist or happiness engineer. Just clean code, real automation, and dignity. I cracked my knuckles. Opened the terminal. And muttered something stupid, something that made me laugh the second it escaped my mouth. Let's. Damn. Go. Asterisk, it wasn't revenge. Not at first. It was survival. A keyboard, an idea, and the kind of energy that only arrives when every bridge behind you is ash. I dove headfirst into the codebase I'd abandoned months prior, lines of logic scribbled in caffeine fits, fragments of vision scrawled between production outages and HR webinars on resilience. Back then, it was a sandbox for frustration. Now, it was escape. The repo stared at me like an old friend I hadn't called in too long. I dusted off shell scripts, restructured directories, deleted comments that no longer made sense to anyone. But the version of me that still believed the company would change. I wasn't sure what I was building yet, but I knew what I wasn't. I wasn't building another tool that would end up lining Brent's performance review with gold stars. This was for the ones still silently suffering behind badge access and ping notifications. The first weekend blurred. I barely showered, lived off instant noodles and anger, and only stepped outside to avoid hallucinating from screen glare. I spun up a test server, bought a domain that sounded like something between a manifesto and a dare, and slapped together a landing page. Clean white background, black text, real deployments. Real people. No fluff. I wasn't sure if it was genius or desperation. But I kept pushing. By Monday, I'd sketched out the core modules, nothing fancy. CI/CD without the headache. Container orchestration that didn't require a doctorate in AWS pricing tiers. Permissions designed for humans instead of medieval guild systems. My goal wasn't to reinvent DevOps. It was to make it suck less. Halfway through optimizing a rollback function, I paused. Not because of burnout, but because something stirred. Doubt. That voice you try to drown out with Spotify and debugging. What if no one cared? What if this thing never saw daylight? That's when I remembered Ron Devine. He was a founder I'd saved once upon a fiscal quarter. His e-commerce startup had been spiraling into chaos thanks to a consultant who thought Jenkins was a chatbot. I'd untangled their deployment mess in a weekend, charged him next to nothing, and walked away with a thank you burger and a handshake that smelled like gin. I hadn't spoken to Ron in years. But I still had his number. I texted him at 11:47 p.m. Hey, remember when I fixed your pipeline with a Red Bull and Spite? I'm building something. It's raw, but it's real. You game to hear me out? His reply came 4 minutes later. Only if you're buying the wings. We met at the kind of place where every seat had duct tape and the menu had more typos than calories. I pitched over burnt fries and flat soda. No buzzwords. No elevator spin. Just what I had, what it could become, and why I wasn't interested in selling it to the highest bidder only to get laid off again when the stock dipped 3 points. Ron leaned back, chewed thoughtfully, and asked one question: how much runway do you need to get this off the launch pad? I gave him a number. Modest. Realistic. Enough to eat, rent, and keep my servers from going cold. He snorted. Double it. You'll burn through half of it before you even realize you need more. And send me your wire info. By sunrise, the funds were in my account. That afternoon, I reached out to Mel. Mel was my college roommate turned startup lawyer turned semi-feral legal shark who once sent a cease and desist to a Tinder date who copied her LinkedIn summary. We hadn't spoken in a while, but I knew she'd pick up. Hey, I said. I need to incorporate something. And I need it airtight. She didn't even pause. You planning on stealing clients, burning bridges, or both? I laughed. Neither. Just building an exodus. She filed the paperwork by the end of the day. Didn't charge me a dime. Said it was her way of flipping off the patriarchy in a pantsuit. The next 72 hours were a blur of caffeine, CLI errors, and little victories. I registered the LLC, wrote the first blog post, set up email aliases, configured monitoring dashboards. The kind of things people forget happen behind every startup logo. Each task was a brick in something solid. I called it Fair Deploy. No mascots. No corporate art of smiling people holding sticky notes. Just a homepage that said what needed saying, no politics. No theater. Just clean rollouts and good humans. I handwrote job listings, skipping the usual BS. No unpaid overtime. No infinite meetings. No culture fit gatekeeping. 20% above standard market because burnout costs more than raises. Every color I picked for the UI, every button label, every font choice, came from lived experience. I remembered every time I was ignored in meetings, every tech bro who repeated my ideas louder, every day I fixed something and got blamed when it broke later. By Friday night, the platform was alive. It wasn't polished, but it pulsed. The authentication worked. The core pipelines fired correctly. And the career page gleamed like a dare. All I needed now was a message, not a resignation letter. Not a scorched earth Slack bomb. Just a soft nudge. A breadcrumb trail. So I drafted it. An email. Short. Civil, non-venomous. To the team, thank you for the 7 years. I've grown, struggled, and learned alongside you. I'm building something new. It's early, but it's real. If you're curious, fairdeploy.dev/careers. Wishing you the very best. No threats. No name drops. Just a door, gently propped open. I scheduled it for Monday. 9 a.m. sharp. Peak inbox hour. The time people were sipping cold brew pretending not to dread the stand-up with Brent. Then I closed the laptop. Exhaled. And waited. The moment arrived with no ceremony. Just a breath, a tap, and a flicker of scheduled automation. At exactly 9 a.m. Eastern, my farewell hit the inboxes of 87 people, engineers, product managers, interns. 2 execs who never remembered my name unless something exploded in prod. No fireworks. No dramatic gifs. Just plain text and a single hyperlink, disguised as an opportunity. Then, nothing. I waited. 20 minutes passed. No replies. No reactions. Not even a mistimed "you too" from someone who didn't read past the subject line. My thumb hovered over my phone screen like a priest over holy water. I stared at the quiet like it might start speaking. Maybe I'd overestimated my impact. Maybe Fair Deploy was just a vanity project dressed in terminal windows and misplaced hope. 9:27 a.m. ping, Slack notification. Maya. The junior I'd mentored for 2 years. The one who used to call my bash scripts black magic and once baked me cookies after I debugged her prod rollout at 2 a.m. Maya, Fair Deploy is you? You sneaky legend. Just applied. Daniel's about to. We're done with this place. I grinned. Alone. In my kitchen. With a cold bagel and a flood of relief. 9:34 a.m. ping. 9:41, another one. By 10:05, I had 6 messages from former teammates, some warm, some furious, all curious. You hiring or starting a cult? Brent made us sit through another growth mindset webinar yesterday. Your email felt like a lifeline. No Jira? No daily stand-ups? Just honest work? Is this a trap? It was like watching a dam crack. A slow, pressure-built rupture in the wall everyone pretended wasn't leaking. One by one, they reached out. Some cautiously. Others like they were sprinting through fire toward an exit sign they never thought was real. By noon, the flood was undeniable. 3 engineers I deeply respected, one of whom had barely spoken to me during my final year, messaged. With versions of the same confession, I gave notice. Applied already? Start Monday if you'll have me. Can't take another week of Brent explaining containers like he invented Docker. I didn't ask anyone to leave. I hadn't even whispered about opportunities. All I'd done was build a better option, and now people were walking toward it willingly. That's when it really hit me. This wasn't retaliation. This was resonance. Inside the office, though, I knew the silence wouldn't last. And sure enough, Thursday night, I got a DM from an anonymous insider. Screenshot attached. Subject line. Team alignment meeting, urgent sync, Brent, in general chat, trying to salvage his empire. Let's realign around retention strategies and re-establish our core cultural values. Translation. People are fleeing and I have no clue. WHY.HR started sending out one-on-one check-in invites. The same team that once ghosted time off requests now suddenly cared about morale. It would have been funny if it wasn't so transparent still. I didn't gloat. No posts. No comments. No victory laps on LinkedIn. That wasn't the point. I wasn't interested in torching their house. I was busy pouring concrete under mine, but caution still whispered. Brent was a cornered animal now. The kind of guy who panics when things get slippery. He'd find a way to spin it. Accuse me of poaching. Undermining. Stirring rebellion. He'd use big words with small meanings and hope someone up the ladder took the bait. That night, I brewed tea, sat on my balcony, and listened to the wind like it had answers. Friday morning, laundry day. I was halfway through folding clothes I'd ignored for 3 days when my phone buzzed again. LinkedIn alert, new job posting, senior DevOps lead. Denver, Colorado, $240,000 per year plus sign-on. I blinked. Check the listing. My old role. My exact responsibilities. My scripts. My stack. My workflows, everything, down to the disaster recovery protocols I built by hand, was right there in the job description. Only now it came with a signing bonus. And relocation perks. They weren't even subtle. They didn't value the role when I filled it. But now that I was gone? Suddenly it was worth 2 times the salary and a signing gift. The desperation practically radiated through the screen. Around noon, Jess called. A project manager who always played neutral. I hadn't heard her voice since the layoff. She skipped pleasantries. You lit the fuse. It's chaos in here. I leaned back in my chair. Brent pulled us into an all-hands yesterday. Called it a mission reflection moment. He was sweating through his Patagonia. HR scrambling to throw out counter-offers. Like life vests on the Titanic. I could almost hear the resignation in her laugh. He actually said, "We want to build a place people choose to stay." Like you hadn't been fighting for that for years. We talked for nearly an hour. Candid. Measured. No gossip, just clean autopsy on a slow-moving implosion. Before we hung up, she said, quietly, "I wish I'd left with you." That stuck because somewhere in between the chaos and the applications, the shift had started. The rebellion wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was resignation letters submitted after midnight. Calendars blocking out final days. Quiet Slack status changes, they weren't escaping. They were choosing. By Friday night, Fair Deploy had 47 new applicants, but these weren't random resumes. They were essays in disguise. Each one filled with vulnerability, honesty, and exhaustion. I've been burned too many times. I'm so tired of pretending I care about culture points. I just want to work somewhere where my code matters. And that's when the doubt hit again. Not fear. Not guilt. But wait. I hadn't recruited. I hadn't hunted. But I had opened a door, and people were walking through. Was that manipulation? Or was it redemption? I didn't know. All I knew was this: I wasn't going to recreate the thing I left. Not even close. A Fair Deploy would be different. And if people were coming, it would be because they believed, not because I used their trauma. As a lover.so, I poured another coffee. Sat down. Opened the admin panel. Reviewed each application one by one. Not as a gatekeeper, but as a builder. Subject line, reconsidering professional conduct. Brent. I stared at the email header like it might bite. It was 6:14 p.m. on a Friday. Classic move, drop the drama when you think someone's mentally checked out. I let the notification sit. Didn't open it for a full 15 minutes. Just watched the cursor hover while the sky outside shifted from orange to navy, then I clicked. The body of the message was bloated with passive aggression and HR-friendly padding. A masterclass in weaponized courtesy. It has come to our attention that several employees have recently resigned, many of whom are reportedly considering roles at your newly founded venture. While we fully respect your right to pursue independent projects, I trust you understand how this pattern may appear externally. I didn't finish reading the first time. I just laughed. A hollow, quiet thing. Not joyful, just exhausted. He didn't name names. Didn't accuse me directly. That would have required a spine. But the implication was clear. He was trying to lay the groundwork, frame the narrative. I wasn't just building something new, I was luring people away. Disrupting. Interfering. He called it a concerning trend. Like I was a virus. I could have clapped back. I could have unleashed hell. But instead, I opened a folder I hadn't touched in weeks. One labeled insurance. Tucked away for a rainy day like this one. Inside? Screenshots. For LinkedIn messages I'd sent Brent over the past 6 months. All of them professional, respectful, and completely ignored. Point one flagged rising burnout on the team. Another asked about promoting a junior engineer who'd been pulling overtime every weekend. One suggested simplifying our incident response playbook. The last? A proposal for restructuring the DevOps pipeline for efficiency, coverage, and long-term growth, all left on scene. No replies. No action. Just apathy. Wearing a polo shirt. I compiled them into a tidy PDF. Gave it a neutral file name, teamhealth_notes.pdf, then I drafted my reply. Hi Brent, thanks for reaching out. I want to clarify that I haven't initiated direct outreach to any former colleagues. Opportunities at Fair Deploy are publicly posted and available to anyone seeking alignment with our values and culture. For transparency, I've attached several communications from my time at Whitmore, which reflect prior attempts to address retention, burnout, and process improvement. I hope they're helpful in your ongoing efforts to foster a stable and empowered engineering environment. Best, LNO sarcasm. No venom. Just the truth, clipped, concise, and irrefutable. I hit send, then I closed the tab and stood up. The kind of posture shift that comes when a weight finally drops off your shoulders. Not victory. Not yet. But closure, maybe. A soft click in the soul. That's when my phone buzzed. Text from Devin. Devin was the kind of engineer who never spoke unless it mattered. Senior level, sharp as hell. We'd worked together for years but never grabbed lunch. Never traded memes. Just mutual respect communicated through clean pull requests and nods in the hallway. He joined Fair Deploy 3 days prior. Client just confirmed. Full ops migration. $300,000 budget. Says they want me leading it, and they want us to build the stack from scratch. I read it twice, then once more, slower. $300,000. Not just talent. Not just coworkers. Now business was walking. Revenue. An entire contract. One I'd helped win, nurture, support, now ready to shift its weight into our sails. I didn't reply right away. I needed to sit with it, the gravity. The full arc 12 months ago, I was being asked to explain containerization to a VP who thought Kubernetes was a social network. Now I was being handed budgets and trust, and Brent? He didn't even realize. The wall was cracking until Saturday. My phone vibrated before sunrise. I groaned, reached for it with the regret of someone expecting another spam email from a recruiter pushing a crypto startup. Ping, Slack from Maya. 3 more devs just gave notice. Didn't even wait for counter offers. One wrote, "Thank you" in the subject line and nothing else. Second ping. Forwarded email from a connection still trapped inside. Subject, exit interviews, emergency slots time, 8 a.m. sharp. 7 resignations. 1 day. 7. By the time I poured my coffee, LinkedIn was lit up like a birthday cake in a wind tunnel. People I hadn't spoken to since my second year at Whitmore were reacting to a screenshot someone had anonymously posted. My farewell email, shared in a private Slack channel called Outta Here Club. A quiet wildfire. Lit with courtesy. Burning with truth. That afternoon, another message arrived. Screenshot from an internal team chat. Timestamp to Brent, "Does anyone know how to deploy without her scripts?" Silence. Brent again, "Did she leave documentation?" Someone else, "She did." No one read it. That one made me laugh. First real laugh in weeks. Loud, gut-shaking, they had the tools. They just never learned how to use them, because while they were posturing and politicking, I'd been quietly building systems, not just of software, but of trust. Process. Consistency. Now that I was gone, it wasn't uptime they missed. It was direction. I logged into Fair Deploy's backend. 11 new applications. 3 from former PMs. 1 from a QA lead I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. They weren't fleeing, they were choosing. Not because of me. Because of what we were building. No. Pitch decks. No signing bonuses. Just dignity. I opened the careers page editor. Scrolled to the top. Under the black terminal image, our tagline still sat, "Real work. Real people. Real pay." I added one more line, "Welcome aboard, team." No fanfare. No confetti. Just a truth. Quietly replacing a lie. The following Monday felt different. Not lighter, heavier, like the gravity had shifted just a little. Like I was no longer carrying the weight alone. By 8:45 a.m., my inbox was already full. Not with spam or automated platform updates, but resignation confirmation screenshots. People I hadn't spoken to in months, some I thought barely tolerated me, were handing in their walking papers with quiet resolve. One engineer forwarded a Slack thread, "Brent, we're offering retention bonuses to any key staff ready to commit to the next 6 months. Response, defined, key. Brent, let's discuss in private. Another dev, cool, just sent in my notice. Cheers. You could practically hear the seam snapping. I sipped my coffee slowly, black, hot, and unforgiving. The way I liked my consequences, Fair Deploy had gone from idea to ignition in record time. The site traffic tripled over the weekend. My email was full of questions, references, portfolios. But the ones that hit hardest weren't formal. They were raw, human. Typed in lowercase at midnight. Worded like confessions. Been crying after work for months. Didn't know there were options that weren't soul-numbing. Not sure what I'm good at anymore, but I want to rediscover it with people who give a damn. I'd started this thinking maybe, a few folks would follow. I never imagined it would become an avalanche. Meanwhile, Brent was unraveling. Like a knockoff sweater in the rain. I got another screenshot that afternoon, anonymous again. Internal thread. HR scrambling. Legal involved. VP of Ops, we're investigating the root cause of the sudden attrition spike. Brent, I told you we shouldn't have let her own the automation layer. Legal, reminder, layoffs and severance were approved by you. Blame ping pong. Everyone swinging, no one scoring, and then came the LinkedIn post, public. Cringed. A photo of Brent at some tech conference in a badly lit hotel ballroom, shaking hands with someone important looking. Caption? In challenging times, strong leadership means owning the narrative. Here's to growth through adversity. The comments were brutal. Someone tagged the company's Glassdoor page. Someone else posted my farewell email. Another simply wrote, "Narrative slipping, champ." I didn't react. Didn't comment. Didn't share. The beauty of quiet victory is that it doesn't require applause. Just momentum, but I wasn't done building. Wednesday night, I reopened the repo. My hands hovered over the keyboard. I'd spent the last few weeks playing defense, responding, onboarding, stabilizing. Now it was time to go on offense. Not in the petty sense. Not sabotage. But clarity. We needed a public footprint. Something undeniable. So I built the Fair Deploy journal, not a blog. Not marketing fluff. A place for real stories, anonymous, if they needed to be. Engineers, designers, project managers writing about what broke them and what healed them. Each piece had the same structure: what we endured, what we learned, what we need next. I called the first post the day I stopped feeling disposable. It wasn't about revenge. It was about value. About waking up from the dream that being loyal meant being silent. I hit publish at 10:03 p.m. Within 30 minutes, it had 400 views. By sunrise? 9000. The replies came fast. One said, "I sent this to my whole team. We've been gaslit into thinking burnout is a badge of honor." Another said, "My CTO printed this out and pinned it on the fridge. I'm terrified and inspired." But one message shook me: "I'm 55. Spent 30 years building platforms that vanished when management changed. I thought I was too old to matter." This made me want to try again. I sat back, blinked hard, and let it sink in. Fair Deploy wasn't just a lifeboat anymore. It was a lighthouse, and lighthouses don't chase ships, they just stand tall enough for people to see them when they're lost. Still, I knew Brent wasn't going to let this go quietly. That Friday, I received an envelope. Hand-delivered. No return address inside? A printed copy of my original employment contract. Highlighted sections. One clause underlined: non-solicitation agreement for a period of 6 months post-employment. A post-it note was stuck to the bottom corner. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Let sleeping dogs lie." No signature. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Brent's last Hail Mary. I scanned the document, turned it over, and found the original date, March 2017. Outdated language. No clause update for remote employment. No binding arbitration adjustment. It was toilet paper with a watermark. I called Mel. She picked up on the second ring. Guess who sent me a passive-aggressive legal threat in Comic Sans? Her laughter almost made me drop the phone. "Tell Brent his legal ghostwriter should switch fonts and threats. That contract won't survive a sneeze in court." We laughed harder than we had in weeks. She drafted a response that was equal parts scalpel and smirk. By Saturday, the ceasefire was official. Brent had no leverage left. He'd lost the narrative. He'd lost the team, and now, he'd lost the chance to intimidate me into disappearing. Monday dawned without tension. No alarms, no anxiety spiders crawling up my spine. Just sunlight through the blinds, my cat curled beside my laptop, and a quiet inbox filled with calm.no legal threats. No panic team messages. Just one clean subject line from Devon: "They've started copying your architecture." I raised an eyebrow and opened the attachment. It was a screenshot from an internal repo. Someone at Whitmore, almost certainly desperate, had tried to replicate Fair Deploy's streamlined pipeline. Badly. Same flow, different labels, wrapped in redundant approval steps. They missed the point entirely. They thought the secret sauce was scripts, but it was trust, and trust couldn't be forked off GitHub. That same morning, Fair Deploy crossed 100 applicants. Not all technical. Some were ops. Some marketing. Some just lost. Looking for something that didn't feel like slow motion. Self-betrayal in a cubicle. We weren't just assembling a team. We were building a coalition. That afternoon, I got a voicemail from someone I hadn't heard from in years. His name was Jay. VP of product during my second year. Quiet guy. Liked whiteboards and questions more than sound bites. We'd had a few late nights troubleshooting integrations together. Then he'd left. No announcement, just vanished from Slack one Tuesday. His voice on the recording was measured, careful. "Saw what you built. Just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. You were always the real CTO in that place." I played that message 3 times, then I sat at my desk and cried for the first time, not out of anger or grief, but relief. Because maybe I wasn't delusional. Maybe I'd been right to believe something better could exist. That evening, Jess called. "You hear the news?" I hadn't. Brent resigned. Effective immediately. Internal memo says he's pursuing new growth opportunities. But HR is scrambling. The board's not happy. There was a pause. "Your email?" Someone printed it out. "It's hanging on the office fridge." I choked on my tea. Underneath it, someone wrote, "This is what leadership looks like." We didn't talk long. After that. Just enough to let the moment breathe. Later that night, I logged into Fair Deploy's backend and stared at the stats. Server stable. App usage trending upward. No outages. No dependency chaos. Just clean functionality and messages like, "This is the first time I've wanted to open my laptop in months. Thanks for reminding me I matter." I didn't. No tech could feel like home. I scrolled through each one. Slowly. Like a museum of healing, and that's when it hit me: they thought I'd been cut loose. That I was just one more redundancy swept under budget optimization. But they hadn't deleted me. They detonated their compass. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't chasing revenge. I was building something Brent couldn't even comprehend, something bigger than petty power plays and panicked optics. Something with legacy, because the truth is, some companies get burned down with lawsuits. Others just fade. One quiet resignation at a time. One voice deciding to stop nodding in meetings where mediocrity was dressed in lanyards and thought leadership. And some places? They become warnings, but fair deploy? It was becoming proof that engineers weren't impossible to retain, they just needed room to breathe. That value didn't come from ping pong tables or company hoodies. It came from being seen. At 11 p.m., I opened a text thread with Maya, Devin, and the handful of early hires who had become the spine of this thing. We're ready. Let's go public next week. The responses came back instantly. Finally. About time. Let's show them how it's done. I scheduled the announcement draft. Fair Deploy is hiring. If you're tired of being gaslit by OKRs, we're building something slower, kinder, smarter. Come build with us. Short, sharp, true, and then I closed the laptop, not like slamming a door. More like shutting the lid on a finished story. If Fair Deploy wasn't revenge, it was refuge. It wasn't about stealing talent. It was about giving good people somewhere to land after freefall. After silence. After being told, you're lucky to be here, while solving crises no one else noticed. They'd called me redundant. Now I was onboarding someone who used to outrank Brent. I sipped my tea bitter, strong, familiar, and smiled, not because they were struggling, but because we weren't, because for the first time in forever, I was free. No titles. No politics. Just clean commits, honest work, and the quiet power of knowing that I was never dead weight. I was gravity, the thing that kept the whole system from floating into chaos. Now, they could drift. I'd already built the next orbit,